Let's face it, setting boundaries can be scary. What do you do when you know you need to say no, but guilt made you say yes? In today's episode, we're diving into a topic that so many of us struggle with, and that's setting boundaries without feeling the guilt. Whether it's in our relationships, our workspace, or even our digital space, the fear of disappointing others often keeps us from protecting our own peace. To help us unpack this, I'm joined by Dawn Petgrave-Smith, a licensed psychologist with over 17 years of experience in counseling. Dawn is an expert in breaking down the emotional barriers that keeps us stuck, overwhelmed, and overextended. We'll be talking a little bit about why do so many people struggle to say no without guilt? How men and women face different challenges when it comes to setting boundaries. How does setting boundaries strengthen self-worth? And what should someone do if people push back against their boundaries? If you're the kind of person who wants to be kind and supportive, but you're tired of stretching yourself too thin, then this episode is for you. Welcome to Project Purpose Podcast, your weekly guide to clarity, courage, and purposeful action. I'm your host, Sheryll, and my mission is simple: to help you get unstuck, reclaim your power, and build a life that's aligned with your true purpose. So if you're ready to set boundaries that protect your energy and not your ego, well, grab a journal, take a deep breath, and let's dive in. All right, everyone. So welcome back to Project Purpose Podcast, your weekly guide to clarity, courage, and purposeful action. We are still on the self-worth series for men and women, and we're once again joined by our beloved licensed psychologist, Mrs. Dawn Petgrave-Smith. Hey, Dawn, welcome back to the show.
Hey, Sheryll, thank you for having me. I'm excited.
Absolutely. And we're super excited as well to have you yet again in that self-worth series, as I just mentioned. Today's topic is how to set boundaries without the guilt. And Dawn, I'm going to actually just get right into it. So let's ask, why do so many people struggle with saying no?
I think people struggle because you don't want to disappoint others. Sometimes you want to fit in, especially for young children when they're going through their teenage years and, you want to fit in, you want to be liked. And so many times persons are just afraid because they don't want to disappoint. Most of the time, they don't want to disappoint.
Yeah, yes, I totally agree with you. And we try to, as you mentioned, say yes when we do mean no. And then oftentimes that leave us with guilt, right? Am I correct?
Yeah, yes, yes. Unfortunately. So I heard this story. Oprah Winfrey, actually, she was talking about saying no and how hard it was for her to say no until someone had asked her to. They were having a fundraiser, and she said she's going to try it out. I'm going to try saying no. And the person called her and she said, sorry, I'm not interested right now. And she said she was waiting for the person to kind of backlash or anything like that. And he just says, okay, all right, see you around. So she still was waiting to see, is this person going to talk to me again? But a week passed, person called her back and it was like nothing happened. And so again, this is why it's so important to understand that we need to set boundaries, because every time, and she mentioned, she said every time somebody called her, even if she's not interested in the foundation or whatever it is, she would say yes because she felt they expected her to say yes.
Wow, that is powerful. That is powerful because, and I know we're going to talk about this later on, but that just shared like an example of the fact that we put the biggest pressure on ourselves, because there she was, already feeling guilty and was already expecting that she was going to be reprimanded for saying no. But it goes to show that people actually will ask, right? And then they'll just move on. So, a part of this whole self worth series is for us to understand, our values, what our priorities are, and start learning how to set boundaries. Because, in essence, oftentimes when we say yes, it's because of our ego. We want to please everyone and we want to be everywhere. But now,
Mhm.
as we dive deeper into self-worth and understand exactly who we are, we realize that sometimes saying no is actually just protecting our peace.
Right, right, absolutely. And sometimes your money.
Yes. Talk to
Sometimes
us a
your
little bit about that.
Yeah. So when DeMarie Institute was at its peak and we're doing well and we're doing all these shows, we're doing Miss Universe Jamaica, we're doing Caribbean Fashion Week, we're doing all these shows. Everybody would reach out to me. This person needs medication. This person needs school shoes. This person needs school fee. This person needs school books. This person, and I think because the business was doing well and it was in the limelight, so everybody know you're doing well. It was hard to tell them I can't do this. But then eventually, when COVID came and I had to close down that business, there was nobody for me to turn to. Nobody from all the persons that I was handing out to. And it wasn't until I was the one now sitting down and looking at the books that I was now looking at how much money just went to charity, you know, other
Yeah.
people and all the things. And no, I'm not saying don't help, but the Bible also says the poor you will have with you always. There is always going to be somebody that needs something from you. But at some point, you have to prioritize what is most important. And so that pushed me actually to set better boundaries where money is concerned. And it also taught me how to respect money more. And then that became a game changer for me. Just becoming more financial literate actually.
Wow. Yeah, that's powerful because, oftentimes when we think about saying no, we're coming from the angle that someone asked you to do something, right?
Hmm.
And we often think of it as, on the job, right? It's your career and, you're overwhelmed with task that's been assigned to you simply because someone know that it's something that you will do. But I love the twist that you just put on it about other areas of saying no could also be in our financial journey space,
Right,
and
right.
understanding that, as you mentioned, right, there will always be needs. And so we, again, would
Mhm.
have to prioritize which one will we, give into, and which one we would actually need to say no to. So
No,
that's
to
powerful. Thank you for sharing that. And I definitely want to reach out to our listeners and, encourage them to stay around till the end, because at the end of this episode, Dawn is going to share with us some script of how to say no
yeah,
effectively, right? Without the guilt, so that you can protect your peace. Because at the end of the day, that's really what we're talking about. Deep down, we're kind people and we want to help, right? That's actually why we're setting boundaries, because we're so willing to help. But at
mhm.
what cost? So stick around and you will learn how to say no without the guilt. So
Yeah.
Don, we're gonna move right into our next question. And this one I can't wait to hear your answer. And I know my I know my personal views on it, but do men and women face different challenges when it comes to setting boundaries?
Absolutely. Absolutely. I think for women, it's we're supposed to prioritize everybody before ourselves. I think that's how we were governed, how we were socialized. Put the kids first, put the husband first, put the parents first. Everybody come before you. And I think for men is the fact that they are expected to lead, and to dominate and to provide and all these things. And so that is where the pressure comes when actually saying no differently for men and for women.
Okay, right. So with women, it's almost the norm for us because of our nurturing capabilities
Abilities, right?
to just do, right? As a matter of fact, and I'm sure you can relate to this as a mom, but again,
Ah,
as just women, that if you're actually not doing something, then something is wrong, right? You're like, shouldn't I be? I'm sure there's something that I need to be doing. And oftentimes we neglect our own
self.
needs and self in order to provide or to fulfill that requirement. Whereas, so do you believe, I guess is where I'm going, that men are able to say no easier, right? Does it come easier for them to say no than for
Oh,
women?
definitely. Oh, definitely. Because remember, men does not have the capability to nurture, right? So it's so much easier for a man to say no, which is why, and this can become so controversial. But many times when women don't get certain leadership positions, let's say within a workplace, it's usually because women, we are more emotional. So we will, if we know we need to say no, the emotions can sometimes take a hold of us, causing us not to make sound judgment. Whereas men are expected to be dominant, they're expected to be leaders. So if this is not a part of what I'm supposed to do, it's so much easier for a man to say, no, I don't want that. You see that in relationships, right? A woman will give and take and give and take, and he's going to change and give and take. A man, this is not working out for you, he's out, he's gone. So definitely it is so much easier, or we see where it's easier for men to just say no than it is for women.
Yes, so powerful, so powerful. But let's stay there a little bit and let's talk a little bit more about the men. Yes, we understand that saying no comes easier for them than women. But what about those men that may go against their nature, so to speak, and still say yes when they know they should say no? In other words, do they experience burnt out as well? And if so, how can they combat that?
Well, let's remember that men are human beings too. And though they may not readily express their emotions, it does not mean that they are emotionless. So we have to always, always remember that a man saying no may be deemed as weakness. Unfortunately, it's not easy being a guy. Like, I am glad I'm not a guy, you know. So they say no, it might deem weakness. And so a lot of times persons just show this tough macho thing while deep down inside they are hurting. Here is something, food for thought. This just came to me because we do have many men who, let's talk about explicit um, sex or promiscuity then, where especially in the Caribbean, the more women you have, that's what makes you a man. And so we realize that stems from men not understanding the importance of saying no. And so you give in, because I'll tell you, when I speak with men, and I've seen it for myself, most of the time it's the women who are approaching these men, and it's the women who are trying to pick them up. And I'll hear things like, but she's the one coming on to me, and they don't know that they have the ability to say no to this. And so many men spent the first 40 years of their lives sometimes wasted with no sense of direction because they never learn to say no to unhealthy choices that are going to significantly affect their future. And it's not just, about promiscuity. It's about smoking too much, drinking too
Peer
much,
pressure.
right? Not going to the doctors, to get checkup, not going to the gym, not eating well, just saying no to unhealthy behaviors. And we sometimes too, Sheryl, miss the point that if we just don't give in to this instant gratification, it later on in life gives us such a better future because we did not give in to these things in the moment right here. And so our men do struggle. They do struggle with self-worth and, say no, though it may be easier for them to just say no. But we do have men who struggle just the same.
Yes, awesome point. I love that. And just to piggyback off it, really, it's mic drop, but
Yeah.
just to piggyback off that, yes, in essence, especially I believe in, again, in the workplace, especially as they gain experience and as they climb the ladder, so to
Ladder,
speak,
right.
it's very easy for them to say no. But to further, amplified your point out in the world, and especially that critical age group that you mentioned, just getting into adulthood and, looking to fit in. There's a
Yeah,
lot of
yeah.
decisions that they make. And I believe, as you mentioned, it was simply because the ego inside would not allow them to say no. And, we can talk about Caribbean men because we are from the
From the
Caribbean. We have
Caribbean, right.
witnessed it from, grandparents, uncles, fathers, brothers, and you see where, I'm not sure what it is about them, but that ego is just always, at the forefront. And a lot of times they make choices, as you just mentioned, simply because they're afraid of what people will say
Same.
about them should they, had made a different choice. So great point there. Anything more on that before we move on?
Girl, we could sit right there for the whole day. So
Let's move on then.
so
Let's
let's move on. Let's move on.
Yeah. Okay. So I want to know, what does setting boundaries, well, actually, how does setting boundaries strengthen self worth?
Wow. Well, definitely, it gives the sense of self-respect, and we will give respect to others, and sometimes we don't give it to ourselves. And so setting boundaries help to enhance your self-worth, right? Go back to the story with Oprah Winfrey. I wish I could have found it for this, but she spoke about how confident she felt after saying no, right? And it's not that everybody knows Oprah is extremely kind. Everybody knows that. But it doesn't mean that you need to give into everything that comes your way. All right. And so it strengthens your self-worth, and it also it shows self-respect. I think those are the two main things. And over time, it teaches others how to treat you.
Wow. I love that point. Talk to us about that.
All right. So I think I mentioned before that I'm an early riser, so I go to bed early. I'm up 5 a.m. I cut off at 9 p.m. And the only people who have access to me is immediate family because you guys are on override. But my phone shut down. My phone, the screen blank, and anybody that knows me knows that. So they do not call me if there is an event going on. They know that that's not for Dawn because you know she's that. Um, Persons also know I am a person that respects time. I respect time. So if I have a meeting with you at 11 o'clock, you best know that 5 to 11 or 10 to 11, I'm already ready. So with my clients, if they're running late, they're calling ahead of time. Miss Petgrave, I'm running a little bit late because they know how I respect my time. So it's just little things like that. How, when you set boundaries, it teaches people how to treat you. And it's extremely important that we're doing that for ourselves. And watch how much more productive you become when you set some boundaries for yourself.
Yes, absolutely. That was so powerful. So, again, guys, if you're listening in, or if you're even just joining us, we're talking to our psychologist, Dawn Petgrave Smith, and we're talking about, setting boundaries without the guilt. And I totally agree with you, Dawn, that when you do set those boundaries, in essence, you are now in control of your life, right? You
Of
are
course.
co-creator with God, right?
Absolutely.
And so you do gain that self-respect with
Hmm.
yourself, and also, I believe it allows you to continue to build self confidence, right? Because you are, as you experience things that you want and don't want, you are finding the time to eliminate those that don't serve you, and you're
Right.
prioritizing those that do, such as setting
Right.
boundaries.
Right. Right. And it's also helping other people. Sheryl, you will be amazed how many people watch your life, right? And how many people will do things based on what you do. So it is so important that even if you're finding it difficult to do it for yourself, remember that there is always someone, a younger person, a niece, a nephew that is looking on, and the life that you live can become an example to them. So, what is the example that you want to teach them? So,
Yeah.
self worth and setting boundaries is not just for you. It's not just for you, but it's also for those around you.
Yes, that is an absolute point. I totally agree with that. I totally agree with that. you know, um, So true, because as you just mentioned, and I believe you mentioned this on the last episode as well. If you haven't watched it yet, then you need to go back and listen to silencing self doubt. And one of the
Doubt,
things
yeah.
you had mentioned was, learning to treat yourself the way you want people to treat you. Like, right, people actually treat you the way you treat yourself.
Yeah,
I'm not
yeah.
sure if I'm wording it right. Please explain.
Yes, yes, yes. So it's something that I started about 16 years ago, actually, when I started DeMarie Institute Limited. And I would have all these young ladies that they all come from different backgrounds. And so we have a lot from inner city. And they would come and they would just drag, just drag themselves. And I remember saying to one young lady one day, I said, she was saying that people don't take her serious and they don't want to pay her to do makeup. And I said, take a look at yourself. Would you want to pay you to do your makeup? And it opened up her eyes. And I said to her, every day you leave your house, you need to look the way you want to be paid and the way you want to be treated. And how you treat yourself is how you're teaching other people to treat you. And so that became the opening statement for all our classes. And you would be amazed how many persons' lives have been impacted just by that statement. I had one young lady call me one time and she said, Miss Petgrave, I had an interview and something was going on at home and she was just feeling down and sad and wasn't sure. And she said she remembered this statement. And she said, let me tell you something. I put some makeup on and I put on some red lipstick and I look in the mirror and I said, okay, girl, okay, girl. And she went out and she got that job. So, how you treat you is teaching people how to treat you every day. And a lot of times when people treat us badly, now, mind you, there are people who are just going to treat you badly no matter what you do. There are those. But many times we get so focused on the external factor. Oh, this person did this to me. Oh, that person did this. This one is wicked. This one. But you're the common denominator. So, for someone listening, just remember that every day you wake up, you're teaching people how to treat you. So, treat yourself well.
Yes. Yes, absolutely. Absolutely. Great point. So now let's get into some action steps. We love that here on this podcast. So
Yeah.
it's one simple way to start setting boundaries. And this could be either at work, in relationships or with family, because you just mentioned how we treat ourselves is how we're teaching others to treat us. So give us some examples of setting boundaries and, in those different areas, as I just mentioned.
Yeah. So, one simple way is saying no. Even when you do not feel like it, just try. Just try. Cheryl, I remember, and I was going through my divorce at the time, and I am here with the children, three different drop offs, three different pickups, three different sets of activities. But I'm also very involved in the church at the time. And I remember one church sister called me and said she's going through something and if I could pray for her. So I said, absolutely. And she says, okay, what time you coming? So I said, I won't be able to come to your house. I mean, I don't need to be at your house. But she insisted that she wanted me to come over. And at the time, my car was in the shop, and I'm telling her, and she insisted, I'll send a taxi for you. And I remember stopping her, and I said, you're not hearing me. My car is in the shop. I have my three children to be picked up. They're in three different schools. But you're expecting me to ignore my children and their needs and come to your house to pray with you just because I'm a minister in the church? That was a wake up call for me. Because how many of us put our own families at risk? How many people in the church put their families at risk for the quote unquote church? And I recognize that I had to get to that place where I don't allow what you think to bother me or how you treat me after. Here is something, and this is a nugget. Helping you should not hurt me. So if somebody's asking you to do something that is gonna to help them, but it's gonna hurt you, no, no, helping me should not hurt you. I mean, helping you should not be hurting me. So the best way to start setting boundaries is saying no. Before you get there, though, you have to know what you're about. We talked about this last week. You have to know what are the things that matter to you. Right now, one of the things that I'm having to do is to send people to my website to make an appointment. So I'm a therapist. Again, I'm heavily involved in church. And some of the things that I would get is somebody would call and say, Sister Dawn, I need to talk to you. And I would say, all right, you might have to make an appointment because today is a pat day for me. And they're offended. They're offended by that. Or somebody may just call and I'll take the call. But you realize that this is a whole session that they need. And I'm like, all right, wait a minute. I think we need to set up a session. They're upset about this. And so that was very hard for me to digest because if you can't just call your doctor and start tell your doctor everything. The doctor's going to tell you you need to book an appointment and come in. Cheryl, that was very hard for me when I went into psychology full time. That was so hard because remember, this is my bread and butter. So plus it's more effective when you can set an appointment and meet with someone. That was a boundary I had to set for myself. If it's something to do with mental health or counseling, you have to set an appointment. That was very hard. So just start with what are the things that I don't like and just put your foot down, as we would say in Jamaica. Put your foot down where that is concerned. But the simplest way to set boundary is start by knowing who you are. So you're going to have to spend some time with yourself to know who you are, what you're about. And then if something doesn't suit you, just say no and be okay with saying no.
Wow. Yes, I totally agree with you. And I'm just smiling as you were talking because the next question, the final question that I have actually uh, is, what should someone do if there's pushback against boundaries, which is exactly what you just
Mm,
cover in your stories, such powerful stories that you share with us. And so, really, that's it because, as you just mentioned, there will be pushback, especially in the beginning, because people are not used to you, maybe
right,
as yet, saying no to them.
right, right,
And as you mentioned, you do have to start spending time with yourself so that you get to know yourself, so that you know your values and you will know what matters the most to you. What should you
right.
prioritize and what should you say no to? So, any final thought on that? Because, like I said, you literally covered it when you share
Yeah,
that
yeah.
story about the sister expecting you to come now.
Right, right. Yeah, I'll add a little more to that, Cheryl. What I will say is if you get pushback, eventually you may have to start cutting some people off. And that's hard. But if somebody consistently test your boundaries, it means they don't respect who you are as an individual. And it might be time to walk away from those things and situations that no longer serve you. And sometimes it may be relationships and sometimes it may be a job. But you first have to know what serves you and what does not serve you. And then um, I do have a poem, and this is mainly for the women that I would love to read. I took it from the book Radical Awakening by Dr. Shefali, and I think I must have sold more of Dr. Shefali's book because I recommend it to my female clients. She spoke in that book heavily about these things, setting boundaries, working on your ego, becoming your authentic self. But listen to this amazing poem. It's called The Time of the Awakened Woman. There comes a time in the life of a woman when she discards her old ways like tossed shoes in the garbage, when she shreds her list of shoulds and obligations, and when possible expectations are burned in an incinerator. There comes a time in the life of a woman when the approval of others that once jewels now turn to pennies in her sock, when the hunt for another is now replaced by the hunt for herself, and when parental tentacles of tradition no longer desire her truth or define her truth, there comes a time in the life of a woman when her desire to fit in with the crowd dissolves, when her manic compulsion to be perfect vaporizes, and when her obsession to be voted popular eviscerates. There comes a time in the life of a woman when she simply says, no more. When facade, artifice, and guile leave her nauseated, and when righteousness, dogma, I'll read that again. And when righteousness, dogma, and superiority repulse her, there comes a time in the life of a woman when she no longer fears conflict, but faces it boldly like a lioness. When she guards her authenticity as fearlessly as she guards her babies. And when she drops the role of savior, knowing she can only save herself. There comes a time in the life of a woman when she no longer cowers in the shadows of her unworthiness, when she no longer plays small so others can feel big, and when she swaps the role of victim for the role of co creator. There comes a time in the life of a woman when she unabashedly and boldly occupies her ultimate sovereignty, when she finally feels ready to claim her space in the world, and when she redefines compassion as unequivocal self love. There comes a time in the life of a woman when she finally releases her childlike dependencies on others, when she dares to rewrite a new mandate of living for herself, one that says, I release unworthiness and fear. I divorce servility and passivity. I divest inauthenticity and enmeshment. I end the pretense of being someone I am not. And from now on, I declare I will ascend into my highest power. I will embrace my greatest autonomy. I will celebrate my deepest worth. I will embody my fiercest courage and manifest the most authentic me. The time is now, and I am ready to awaken into my renaissance.
Wow.
Yeah.
That is beautiful. Yeah, that is beautiful. Thank you so much for sharing. We should just end the series, end the
Right there,
episode
yes.
right there. And that's powerful. I haven't read her book yet, so I will leave that description below for our in the show notes for our listeners. I myself will definitely look into it. Thank you so much for sharing that
Yeah,
because that pretty much sums up everything that we're saying
everything.
in this series. And I know she's
Yeah,
focusing on women, but also that can be for men as well,
yeah,
for as humans to realize that we're co-creators and go out there and create that life. And will it
yes.
be a walkover? No, but you attack it fearlessly, and you protect it like you would protect your children. I
That's
love
right.
that. I
That's
love
right.
that.
That's right. That's right.
Thank you so much, Dawn. That's why you are, going to continue to be our special expert because you just bring such value and such gem to this podcast, and we do appreciate you. Before we wrap up, I see your background there, and I always want to acknowledge what it is that you do.
Yes,
So go
yes.
ahead and share with us a little bit about that. And then I know we had promised our guests that we were going to do some scripting on saying no
Yes.
effectively. So we'll get to that at the end. But talk to us a little bit about your banner.
Yes, so my banner is my mental foundation for men. And if you are listening for the first time, I am a psychologist. I work in the space of men, both men and women, but mostly men. I sit on the board of visitor for the St. Catherine Correctional Center in Spanish Town, Jamaica. And the mental foundation stands on three pillars: leadership, wellness, and financial literacy for men, because I recognize that whenever I have to work with a male client, it's usually one of those three that his traumas, come from. And so the mental foundation persons can contact us at mental2024.com. You can send us just go to the website. You'll see information if persons would like to donate, because most of the time the stuff that we do are for free. We try to work with young men in the schools. Sometimes we're giving books, self-development books for them to read. So even if people just want to donate self-development books or financial books, we'll definitely greatly appreciate it. So go to the Mental website, mental2024.com. And my private practice is dawnmarietherapy.com. You can book online. The sessions are virtual. So anywhere you are in the world, it doesn't matter. Just go online, book a session that is convenient for you. And I know sometimes persons are afraid of speaking with a stranger, but I guarantee you the sessions are non-judgmental and they're confidential. So don't suffer alone. Reach out. All right. Thank you.
Yes, absolutely. And just to piggyback on that, again, like I said, we appreciate you and your wealth of knowledge that you bring here on Project Purpose podcast. And most of the information that we share is we're giving our own feedback, right? We're sharing information with you and we hope that you were listening. And also, oftentimes we share tips where you can find, books. We've even talked about social media and just the web on a whole, such as YouTube, where you can
Right.
find free information. But should you need to go beyond that self-help and find professional help, right? Should you do require professional help, then Dawn Marie Therapy is also here to give you that help. As she always mentioned this, and I know this for a fact, it's a safe space that you can share and just grow. So again, that's dawnmarietherapy.com. Of course, I will leave the description in the notes below. So thank you for sharing that, Dawn. But let's move on. And before we get into the script, I want to give our listeners a challenge for this week.
Yeah.
And I hope that they will DM us, right? Or just maybe screenshot this and share it on social media and tag us at
Yeah.
Project Purpose podcast. But here's the challenge, right? And I'm going to take this challenge on as well, Dawn, and hold me accountable for the next episode. But the challenge would be to practice saying no this week, right? So start with something small, right? And notice how you feel. Like say no to something that you might have always said yes to and see how it feels, right? And then share that with us. Also, we want to give you one self worth tip. We give them out every week. So here's the one for this week. Every time you say no to something that drains you, you say yes to something that fills you. What do you think
Beautiful.
about Dawn? What do you think about that,
Beautiful.
Dawn?
Beautiful. Beautiful. It does not need any addition. Absolutely beautiful.
Thank you. So it's now back over to you, Dawn. I know you have, I believe you said you had some statistics for us, or like I said, share that
The
script with
script,
us.
right, right. We'll do the script because I do get asked this question a lot. Well, how do you really just say no? So here are some examples how to say no without the guilt. Okay. So, number one, you want to acknowledge the request with kindness. So you can say, thank you for thinking of me, or I really appreciate you reaching out. So, that's one way.
Soft.
Right? Very soft. Um, State your boundary. So this is step two, state your boundary clearly. I won't be able to take this on right now, right? So you're going to say, thank you for thinking of me. I won't be able to take this on right now, or I have to say no to this to honor my other commitments. All right. Step three, which can be optional, offer an alternative or an encouragement. Most of the times, when I have to say no, is somebody asking me to speak at an event, and if I can't go and I know another psychologist who is able, I would offer an alternative. You can try so and so. All right. And number four is close with clarity and warmth. Thanks again for understanding, or wishing you all the best with this. Now, as nice as that sound, you may still get pushback. But Remember, remain calm. So let me go through the whole thing now as an example. So someone calls me, and I'll use something that happened recently. I was asked to speak at a conference. I'm not available. So I thank the person. Thank you for thinking of me, right? Unfortunately, I am not available at that time. However, I do wish you all the very best with the event. That's it. If the person want to get mad, sorry, it's on them, guys. It's not on you. So don't take on that guilt. So there you have it, an easy way how to say no without the guilt.
It's perfect. It's perfect. I'm going to go back and take notes and make sure that I start practicing that. Because, again, just to wrap this up, we talked about it already, but most often we say yes because of the fear of if we say no, what someone would say. But as you had eloquently explained to us in this episode, Dawn, when we say it, especially when we come from that angle, that script that you just mentioned, people actually have a newfound respect for us.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's very, you'll still get the pushback as you mentioned, but it will be very little because people will be like, wow, she did say no to me, but that almost sounds like she said yes the way she said it wonderfully. So
Right.
there should be no hard feeling. And as you also mentioned, when we do this, right, when we know we're not available and we effectively say no, it allows us to even respect ourselves more, and
More.
it helps us to build our own confidence so that we can continue and do the things that really matters to us. So that wraps up this end of this episode, Dawn, which was setting boundaries without
Yeah.
the guilt. I know that you'll be back with us next week. You want to talk a little bit about that? We should be talking about episode 3. If you
Yes, we
remember
will.
the topic.
We will be talking about episode 3, and I want to encourage our viewers that if you have not seen one, go back to episode 1 and then re-watch this episode, episode 2, all right, because you don't want to miss any of it. But next episode we will be talking about breaking free from fear and stepping into purpose. Well, I won't even give you any more information. I will leave it right there. Breaking free from fear and stepping into purpose. We'll see you next time.
Thank you, guys. Thank you, Dawn. We appreciate you so much. That's it, guys. Bye for now.